Welcome to a special edition of the Eurovision Yearbook. This is a series that explores the lives of artists at the Eurovision Song Contest, exploring how they got into the contest and what happened to them after competing. This week, for the very first time, we are joined by this week's featured artist, 2016's runner-up Dami Im from Australia. This is ESC 101. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to ESC 101, your home of Eurovision history and obscurity. This is the podcast where we take a look at the Eurovision Song Contest throughout the years to uncover the story behind the world's largest international televised music competition. Welcome to episode 132. My name is Alexander. If you are watching this episode on YouTube or Spotify, hello. This is the first video episode that I've ever done, and I am really excited for this week's topic. If you're new to the show, this is a Eurovision history podcast where I share the stories of the people and places that make the contest what it is today. I talk about all sorts of things like artists, hosts, interval acts, conductors, venues, spin-off shows like Junior Eurovision, country participations, and so much more. I don't normally do video episodes as I'm a one-person team responsible for everything from research and writing to recording and editing. I have thought about converting past episodes into video format, but that is just a little too time-consuming, so I stick to audio-only episodes usually. However, this week, I decided to make this into a video so you have the option of either watching or listening to the interview that I had with Dami Im. It's not every day that I get to interview a Eurovision artist, so I thought I'd share my experience on both audio and video platforms. I wanted to celebrate Dami's 10-year anniversary, and she was so kind to come onto the show and share her experience at the contest. Just before we get into the interview, I'd like to run through some biographical facts about Dami, just in case if you don't know who she is. Dami Im was born on October 17, 1988 in Seoul, South Korea. At the age of 9, Dami and her family moved to Australia, staying with an uncle in Brisbane while her father stayed in South Korea. Starting at age 11, she began studying piano at the Young Conservatorium of Music at Griffith University. From an early age, Dami's talent was on full display, becoming a national finalist in the Yamaha Youth Piano Competition and winning the Queensland Piano Competition several times. As a teenager, Dami attended John Paul College, graduating in 2005. 4 years later, she graduated from the University of Queensland with first-class honors in her Bachelor of Music degree. She later completed a master's degree in music studies at Griffith University, focusing on contemporary voice. Dami's debut album Dream was released in 2010, featuring gospel music in South Korea. Following an additional 2 EPs, Dami auditioned for the 5th season of X Factor Australia. That's a show similar to American Idol. Interestingly, Dami Im was initially eliminated in the 3rd day of boot camp. However, she was called back to replace an artist who couldn't commit to the competition. Thank goodness they did that because she ended up winning the entire show. What a comeback. Following her victory at X Factor, Dami signed on with Sony Music Australia, releasing her self-titled second studio album featuring the songs from X Factor. She became the first contestant to follow up a #1 single with a #1 album on the Australian charts. Her career continued to explode, becoming the brand ambassador for Priceline Pharmacy's You Beauty campaign, as well as Nintendo's Tomodachi Life, as well as releasing a 3rd studio album which placed in the top 10 of the Australian charts. Then we come to her time at the Eurovision Song Contest. At this point in the episode, I would normally start talking about the experience of the artist at the contest. However, instead of me doing all the talking, let's learn about her Eurovision experience from the icon herself, Dami Im. I am joined by the legendary runner-up of the 2016 Eurovision Song Contest, the one and only Dami Im. Welcome to ESC 101 and happy 10-year anniversary.
Yay! Happy 10 years. Thank you so much.
I cannot believe it's already been 10 years since you officially joined the Eurovision family, becoming the most successful artist to represent Australia at the contest. Not only did you win the second semi-final, you won the grand final jury vote, you placed fourth in the public vote, and came second only by 23 points. How does that feel?
Oh man, it's so crazy. It was, back when it was happening, it was just such a big roller coaster ride. And yeah, to think that Australia and I came so close to winning and we got such a reaction. It was a huge thrill. And 10 years on, like it's made a huge impact on me and my music, and it really opened so many doors for me as an artist, and I got to meet so many amazing music fans through Eurovision. So I'm still really grateful for everything that happened.
And of course, your music skills are a testament to your years of dedication and your creative instincts. Can you start by sharing your music journey with us? When did music start playing a major role in your life?
Well, I come from a musical family. So my mom, she was trained as an opera singer. So when I was young, she would take me to her like rehearsals and things like that, her concert, and then I was getting piano lessons when I was young. And then when I moved to Australia, I guess that's when it sort of became central to my identity, because I was 9 years old and I didn't speak English. I didn't know anyone. I was, being an introvert, it was hard even as a kid. So I really clung to my music. Playing piano was my identity. So I got a chance to play piano at a school assembly, and that's when I realized all the teachers and students, they looked at me like, "Oh, you're really good at this," and it gave me this sense of confidence, and it became that central thing in my life. So yeah, I guess from there on, it went on to, discovering singing and then other instruments. And then, yeah, very long story. And then since then, yeah, music's just been so important for me. Yeah, it's just a big part of my life.
And most recently, you sang the national anthems of both South Korea and Australia at a sports match. She's kind of playing to both sides of your life, being both a South Korean and an Australian. How does that duality impact the creative process for you?
Yeah, yeah. Like growing up in Australia and coming from South Korea, like it was always a question mark, as to how to integrate and come to terms with like, who am I? Everyone's like, I'm not Australian enough and I'm not Korean enough, and always just feeling super awkward in between. And then I guess more recently, the older I got, I realized, like it is a strength, and embracing both can be something that makes me interesting, and my music have a voice that's, yeah, important and authentic. And also it helps that K-pop's become like really cool and like and Korean culture's become a lot more appreciated around the world. So, even though like I'm not a K-pop artist or anything like that, it's good that I can sort of embrace my heritage and yeah, play to both sides and not feel like, I have to strictly belong to just one box. Yeah, so I've learned to just enjoy being both, I guess.
And I think that really speaks to the testament of the Australian spirit. I've never had the opportunity to go to Australia. I do want to go one day, but it's just so geographically distant, which is such an unfortunate thing. But as a Canadian, we have a lot of different cultures that mix within sort of the Canadian story. And I imagine that with your background being both a South Korean and living in Australia, having those sorts of intermixing cultures and perspectives brings you a really great sense of understanding how to draw from all kinds of different things for inspiration and for creating pieces of artwork that I think that your music really speaks to on a lot of people's imaginations when they listen to your music. What does that creative process look like for you? So how do you derive your inspiration?
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's a lot of drawing inspiration from my experience of, my own world, my reality. Yeah, being in Australia, growing up, with a different cultural background. But like I think more than anything, it's just kind of pulling things out of my subconsciousness sometimes, like I just try and come up with something that like I really want to talk about, something that I wasn't even aware of, but as I'm trying to write something and jamming, it might just come up, and things that I needed to say out loud but didn't have the words for it. It's helpful to make songs, and that's a good outlet, I find. Like a lot of songwriters feel that way, but it's just being able to express those thoughts. Like if I would say it out loud, it would sound like really boring or too emotional or too confrontational, because I'm not a confrontational person. But like in my music, I can say whatever I want.
It's such a wonderful experience to be able to have that outlet. And of course, you spent many years before coming to Eurovision releasing albums. You competed on the fifth season of X Factor Australia and won. I mean, that was must have been an incredible accomplishment. You went on to grow a successful career with all sorts of performances and new music. When we get to the point of Eurovision, I mean, you're already a sensation after winning X Factor and having these studio album releases. Up to the run up to getting involved with Eurovision, where are you creatively? Are you in sort of a zeitgeist of all of these different creative influences, or is it something that's, the idea of Eurovision was drawing something sort of specific and unique?
So when I got approached to do Eurovision, I was feeling a little bit stuck in a way, to be honest, because I had been, I was signed to a major label and I was doing all these things, but it was starting to feel like I didn't have a lot of say in the direction I wanted to go in. Like it was a really tough situation where, yeah, like the culture of the company at the time was just really repressive, and I just felt very powerless. That's the biggest feeling I had. And the people I was working with, a lot of them, they were just doing their jobs, but also it wasn't serving me, or like serving my interest to be the best artist that I could be at the time. So to be given that opportunity was a really, really important step for me. And once I was in Eurovision, and then all of that, I've gone through everything and came out the other side really strongly. That's when I realized, oh, maybe right now I have the power to change some of those circumstances. So, like the people I work with, the way I work with other creatives, and taking back the control that I wanted to have musically, artistically, and just in my career, in the direction. So Eurovision was actually quite life changing. It was a big turning point for me, and it inspired me to like follow what was inside of me again, rather than just like, oh, how long will I be able to do this for? Like if they let me go, that I'll just go home and become like a nobody again. Like I was always ready for that, whereas after Eurovision, I'm like, I'm gonna take control of this. I'm gonna do this for the rest of my life. I'm gonna make music that I want to make. I want to connect with my audience. So yeah, it was like night and day. It was a big, big, big event for me.
Can you walk us through how you got connected with Eurovision and how you got connected with SBS?
Pretty simple, really. Like I wanted to do it for a long time, and there were always whispers of, oh, this person's going to go, this will, you might have a chance, or, but everyone wanted to sort of do it, and everyone's like just trying to suss out who's going to get selected. It was an internal selection process. I think I attribute the selection to the Dami army, my fan base, who were very vocal online, just like hammering SBS and everybody involved, like, you need to send Dami, we want Dami. So that probably had something to do with it. And yeah, and I heard that they had tried to work with someone else and that, fell over. Something didn't work out. So then they were like, well, we need somebody else. Who's our second choice? And so it came to me. And so, yeah, I was like, of course, I wanna do this. Of course. Yeah, 100% yes.
And it feels like karma that their second choice got second place, which is still Australia's best result. So I think SBS kind of learned their lesson from that experience.
Well, yeah, no one knew how it was going to go, and I didn't know. That's the scary part, I think, like going into something like Eurovision, it's a huge opportunity, but you just don't know if you're going to come second, 10th, 20th, or last. Like, who knows? You're doing your best, but at the end of the day, like, nobody knows. So that was, yeah, crazy.
I'm curious at the time, if you had not been selected to represent Australia in 2016, would you have considered competing for a different country? Because I know that there are some countries that don't impose nationality laws, so they allow anybody from around the world to take part in their national selections or their internal selections. Have you ever thought about competing for a different country other than Australia?
I did a little bit, but this was not like back in those days. Like back then, 10 years ago, that wasn't even a thing to consider because Australia had just started being a part of it, and so like I didn't even think, it's hard to just think outside the box at that point because you're just like, oh, Australia's in or in and out. But after Australia, I've been through it once, and then years later, I was going to try and do it again through Australia, and then COVID and all these different things happened, and so we're like, oh, maybe like I could compete, go through Sweden or, I don't know. It was just like me and my manager Ken, we were just like bouncing off ideas, but we never like, went for it. But yeah.
And I think that sort of decision to stay within the Australian branch of Eurovision has been so impactful in the way that the contest's history has developed. Your song has had such an amazing impact representing Australia on the Eurovision stage, sort of solidifying their place within the Eurovision family. And I want to share a story with you that I have not shared with anybody on the show before. Back in 2017, I had discovered the Eurovision Song Contest for the first time. So this was the year after you had performed. And I've been going through past Eurovisions just to see what the different flavors were like. And your song had an immense impact on me because that summer I worked at a kids' summer camp. And one of the traditions that we had at that camp was a talent show night that we would run for the kids, and the staff would be involved in doing their own skits and performances. And I decided to perform your song to the group. But the caveat about the song being a bit funny is that I was so nervous because I was so in love with the song that I was afraid of messing up the lyrics. And so I sung Sound of Silence with perfect notation, even reaching your like high notes in the actual performance, but I sung it in gibberish. So instead of singing in English, I literally sung it in this like made up on purpose because I was so scared of getting the words wrong. And I'm just like, okay, I'm just not going to sing in English. I'm just going to sing gibberish. It's going to be the same notes because I've been working in choirs for a number of years, so I know I could sing. But it's like, yeah, at this like camp talent show, here I am singing Sound of Silence. Nobody in the room knows what Eurovision is. So this is like a brand new experience for everybody. And it's just like, it was so, because your song had such a profound impact on me personally, your song was so inspirational that I sung it at a talent show at a summer camp.
Oh, I'd love to see that. Is there footage of it?
No, unfortunately, there is no footage that, at least that I have access to. I'm sure somebody has recorded it on some secret device that I wasn't aware of. But it's people like myself that have had such a monumental place in our lives for Sound of Silence. What goes through your mind when you realize that people like myself have celebrated your song through various different means, whether it's through camp talent shows, or perhaps they're performing your song at Pride, or perhaps there's people that dress up like you, they wear your costume to sort of costume parties. How does that make you feel?
Oh, that's it's crazy. It's like, you're on the other side of where I am, literally, of the world, and you were doing that, and I didn't know that, and until you just told me. And to think that there's people like yourself and all these other people just, enjoying my song, and just like, and the crazy thing is, like, it all has a different meaning to each person. Like, everyone's got a different story and different journey in their lives, and they're using, my song in some way to help them express whatever they're going through. And I think that's just beautiful. And it's something I have to remind myself when I'm, feeling a bit like, oh, stuck or whatever. It's just, yeah, that kind of impact is just means so much to me. And like, sometimes it's easy to get caught up in the numbers, like, oh, came second, came this, and whatever chart positions. But it's like, what it actually means is it got to reach so many people in amazingly beautiful and unique ways. And those stories just mean more to me than anything else, like any other metric like that. Like, those stories, yeah, it's so nice. So thank you for sharing that with me. That made my day.
It is so incredible to be able to be a Eurovision fan, and I mean, like, if I talked to myself 10 years ago, well, 9 years ago, almost 10 years ago, to say that I would speak to the runner-up of 2016, I would have, like, laughed myself out of the room,
You
because it's
would
like,
have
here I am.
grabbed the footage so I could see it.
Oh my goodness, it would have been just like, even just, like, thinking about the fact that I remember singing your song in the talent show, and here I am talking to the very singer who sung that song live on stage. Like, it is just mind-boggling.
Crazy.
And of course, you hold the honor of not just being the most successful artist to represent Australia, placing second in the grand final. You join the ranks of so many runner-ups like Verka Serduchka, Eleni Ferreira, and even past Eurovision winners like Liz Asia, Gignola Cinquetti, and Linda Martin, who placed second on other occasions. How does it feel to have such a prominent place in Eurovision history, especially with the 70th anniversary this year?
Yeah, I just feel so honored to even just be a part of this, history, like, lineage of incredible music and artists and cultural icons. You know, like, I think Eurovision has such a unique place in the world of music. It's like, it's got such a cult following, and the Eurovision fans are, as like, not like any other music fans. They're just crazy. They're just so into it, and they follow it year after year. And I feel like 10 years on, I still feel so supported by the community every time I release my music or do anything musically. Like, it feels like I belong to this part of this weird family, and so I love it. And yeah, 70th anniversary, like, it's such a rich history of, yeah, culture. So I'm just so glad to be in there somewhere.
And it's great to see Eurovision having such an impact, not just on sort of the way that Europe developed over the decades, but how countries like Australia can come in and sort of become part of that European story. And we've obviously seen your reactions live on camera during the grand final when votes were coming in, or when you were being interviewed by, I think it was Mons Zermelo at some points. You were being interviewed just because you were in the lead at that point. Have there been any stories that you can recall from that time that wasn't necessarily caught on camera, sort of how you were feeling in those moments and any interactions in the green room?
Yeah, I remember sitting in the green room, and, like, all those things, we hadn't rehearsed the green room part, obviously. So we're just sitting there, and I'm trying to see what's going on. And, like, I'm a little bit short-sighted, so I couldn't quite read the numbers. So I'm like, what's happening? What's happening? Like, and I had to ask like my husband and my dad was there, Paul Clark, our delegation, he was there, and I'm just asking them like, what does it mean? Like I actually didn't know, and I'm like, oh, we at the top, well, and then it was just like so much happening all at the same time. And then whenever we got 12 points and the cameras would come to us, it's like, wow, like we were so excited. But then, and Paul was like, hey, just don't act too excited because, some people aren't getting points. So you don't want to be like, ah, but I was just like, what? I was just as confused as everybody else. Like, what's going on? So yeah, I think that part was probably just as exciting as, the performance or anything else. That green room part, it was just, I get goosebumps just thinking about everything that happened then.
And how did it feel when you did get like 12 points from a particular country? Did you feel almost like a desire to reach out to that country's fan base and to like say personally thank you, or did it kind of feel a bit distant because it's only you're screaming to a television camera, not necessarily a group of people that are giving the points?
Yeah, no, every time it was like 12 points, I was like, I love you so much. Like, you just, because I didn't know that they were gonna pick me as their 12 points. Like you just don't know. And I just felt so excited, so grateful, and like, yeah, all those feelings you just said, it's just nuts.
And of course, it sounds like a silly question when I ask it. When you're in the semifinals and they have announced the word Australia, you have been cemented as the very first Australian artist to qualify through a grand final, because the first one, Guy Sebastian, was an automatically in the final. How does it feel to be Australia's first qualifying artist in history?
Look, I have to say, I was more nervous about the semi-final round than I was in the final, because I kept thinking I need to get through to the finals, because remember all the other countries, they flew over on a flight, 2 hours, 3 hours, 1 hour. They're so close. We flew over, like our whole team flew for like over 24 hours just to be there. And I'm thinking, if I don't qualify, I'm going to let all these people down, and we probably have to like go home or sit there and just do nothing. Like I just could not fathom. I think I just felt that weight on my shoulder to, like I've got to be the first person to have to get through the semifinals, and this is my most important task. So, you know, to find out that I was getting through and being the number one to be called out, it was just like, and we won the semifinal too. So it was like, whew. And then after that, I think I could enjoy it a little bit more.
I think that sometimes that we as fans forget that sort of pressure in the semifinals, when, I mean, we're down to only two countries with perfect qualification records at this point, Ukraine and Luxembourg, and both countries have such huge histories with the contest and just the pressure that they must be feeling. So I'm so glad that we're able to get a sense of what that feeling is. And I think it's important to remind ourselves sometimes that like these artists are people. We like to throw our ideas and throw our compliments and our shade at the artists. I mean, I obviously have my personal opinions about Sound of Silence. I love it. There were a few things I would have personally changed, but like I personally don't like to go too negative into the space, but there are some people that do. How did that impact you when you were going through the semifinal into the grand final? Because I'm sure you must have read some of the social media comments that were happening at the time. How did that sort of impact the way that you perceived the contest 10 years later?
I get very affected by comments, right? Like if I read something, it would just stick in my head and that's all I would think about. So I did try to not read as much as possible. And I know some people just look at betting odds all the time. Like I couldn't do it. I couldn't. So I made sure, like, don't tell me, people around me, like, don't tell me anything. And it's really hard not to look at your social media. But I think I looked at my posts, but I didn't like look up, other blogs or anything else like that, because that would just throw me off, even if they were good comments, right? And I think The only one that I saw was the day before, or was it even the morning of the final? I saw the video from Wee Wee Blogs, and they had done a review of who they thought was like their top to win, and they did mention me as like their potential winner, and I was shocked. I was really shocked. I was just like, really? Because I had been blind to all of that noise until then. So I'm like, you really think I have, potential to do that? And so that's the only one I saw. But the other stuff, I just couldn't. I don't think I could have. I don't have the nervous system to push through all the noise.
And what was that experience like talking to media outlets like Wee Wee Blogs when you're down on the ground in Stockholm and there's media outlets trying to interview you, trying to pull out, what are you going to do for the competition? What are you wearing? What's running through your mind when you're doing these sorts of interviews?
There were a lot of interviews, like a lot of media from all over the world. So it was quite crazy. But I didn't mind doing the interviews because I knew that it was important to like connect with everyone as well. Like at the end of the day, they're the ones that help you get your fans and get your votes. And, you just want to be on their good books as well. So and also like I liked meeting people from all the different countries, because like when else do you get to do that, in one room? So just I think I took that opportunity to just be like trying to connect with everybody as much as possible. But then on show days, on the competition days, like I think we tried to not do that, and just I was literally like in my hotel room as much as possible when I could just rest.
So when you're interacting with people from around the world, whether it's, media or even, let's say, the other artists, how does that connection feel when you're coming from the other side of the world into this sort of almost uniquely and strictly European space? I know Eurovision, it kind of bleeds the borders of Europe a little bit with, Morocco participated in 1980. We'll have the Armenia, Georgia, Azerbaijan. That's not exactly Europe, but it kind of is. How does that feel coming from such a distant place like Australia and coming into the Eurovision family?
I got asked questions like, oh, why is Australia in Eurovision? You're not in Europe. Like it's, that question just gets asked to death, and then it's been answered to death. So I'm not going to talk about that. But it's kind of cool, it's so fun. Like Australia is not part of Europe, but we just being able to be a part of something that we've been watching for years and years. Like we've had it broadcasted on SBS since the 80s or something like that. Like
Yep, since the
it's
80s.
it's been a part of our culture as well. And so now to actually go inside it, like that part, I think it was just so fun. And since then we've been going each year, but even in my year, it was so new, and it was novelty there. So I think everyone was enjoying it. Like, oh, like let's see how we're gonna go. Like dropping someone into that crazy world of Eurovision. So yeah, it's awesome. Why not?
Did you end up becoming close friends with any of the other artists in 2016?
I wouldn't say like close friends, but I would send messages. I don't know how, but yeah, I was messaging like Mons, and there were a few people that we were like just DMing on Instagram and things like that. Yeah, it's just cool that you get to meet all these legends. Hey.
It's been really fascinating. From the contest last year in 2025, we have the Beauty Blenders, which is the collection of artists that made social media content together and become kind of a little bit of a cult phenomenon in 2025. Did you ever get the opportunity during the grand final, when you're in the green room, to sort of party to the other songs and sort of party with the other guests, or were you kind of just like nervous in the fact that you're representing Australia and it's just like, oh my goodness, the nerves kind of like ran through? What were you feeling in that moment?
So once we'd finished all our performances, and then we had Justin Timberlake come and perform. He sang his new song at the time. It was Can't Stop the Feeling. And so he was doing that song. He was on a promo tour, and we were just like letting our hair down, just like partying. We did the conga line. Yeah, it was fun. Like everyone was just hanging out, and the other artists as well, but also just all the people in the each delegation. Everyone was just having such a good time, and I think that's probably one of the best memories from 2016.
And as part of the 10-year anniversary celebration, you have released a new version of Sound of Silence featuring Electric Fields, which is the duo that represented Australia at the 2024 contest. I'll play a clip for the listeners to hear what it sounds like. I have to tell you, when I first heard the track, I was nervous because I know what Sound of Silence normally sounds like. I'm thinking, okay, what is it going to be? And when I listened to it, I thought that it was so impactful in a spiritual way. When I listen to that version of Sound of Silence, I legitimately feel the spirit of Australia throughout the entire track because it just feels so authentic and emotional. Like, I'm not saying this just to be polite to you or to pump your ego up. Like, I legitimately think that this rendition of Sound of Silence is an artistic masterpiece. What was it like to collaborate with Electric Fields in recreating Sound of Silence after 10 years?
Thank you so much, by the way. That's so sweet. I'm so honored to hear that. Yeah, it was incredible to work with Electric Fields, with Michael and Zachariah. They were just so, like, when I asked them, they were super keen and so open to, just discussing ideas and just coming up with what we could do, brainstorming. And yeah, and we at the start we were going with something a bit more like a ballad again, with like a piano riff and like a different sort of ballad. But then we're like, oh, like it would be good if we could add some kind of beat and something a little more colorful, something a bit more fun, something that, and then include the, indigenous language by Zachariah. Like, all these ideas came through. And then when Michael came up with this groove, we were just like, wow, this is it. This is the direction we want to go in. And with the language, it just became something else. And I really wanted to make something super special to celebrate the 10 years of Sound of Silence because it means so much to me. That song did so much for my fans and the Eurovision community and for me personally. So I wanted it to be a new take on it, with not just like a remix, but like added special something in it, and uniquely Australian. And Electric Fields, they were just the perfect musicians to be able to do that. So yeah, I'm so happy that I got to do this with them.
And how did that collaboration take place? Did you approach them? Did they approach you? What's the story behind how that came together?
So I approached them. I think I sent a DM to Michael, and just asked, it's 10 years coming up, and I just had this idea that we could make something together. And he came back straight away. Like, he was super keen, and he said, "Oh, I think he said, oh, I need to talk to Z, but I think we're in, probably, pretty much." So yeah, that's how it happened. And then we were just bouncing ideas, and then it morphed into this thing.
And I know that you've been asked so many times if you plan on returning to the contest. You did initially say that you're going to compete in Australia Decides before it was ultimately cancelled. And so far, you've said no to returning. We've had our Australian artist and song release, so we know that it's not you competing in 2026. Would you be interested in joining back into Eurovision in some other capacity, perhaps as a commentator or as a jury spokesperson?
Yes. I'll always be happy to do things related to Eurovision because, you know, I'm part of the community and I'll never be outside of it, I don't think, you know. I always want to belong there and interact with the community. So yeah, but I mean, yeah, I've always considered going back and all that, but that part, unless something happens dramatically that, you know, pushes me into doing it, I don't see it happening in anytime soon. But you know, never know. You just never know with life, do you?
So SBS, you heard it here. If you need a spokesperson, if you need a commentator, call Dami up. She is ready just for you.
That's right.
It is so bizarre to be almost celebrating a 10-year anniversary like this because it doesn't feel like it's been 10 years. 2016, watching musically doesn't feel so distant. It's not like watching something from like 1962 or like 1976. Like there's there's not that much of a huge difference, but as a Eurovision history podcast, yes, we tend to focus on the 20th century, but there's also artists and stories like yours that have just as big of an impact on music and on culture. I mean, the fact that you obviously were an Australian sensation through X Factor. Now you've become a global star through Eurovision, through The Masked Singer as well. I mean, your career has been such a phenomenon and a testament to the impact that Eurovision has on artists. I mean, this is the contest that birthed ABBA and the international career of Céline Dion and Na Blue Depende de Blue from Domenico Modugno back in 58. Like, it is such a huge phenomena to be able to see artists throughout the decades. How does it feel to be a part of that larger legacy of 70 years, to say people from 1956 were feeling probably very similar things to what you felt in 2016, feeling that nervousness of representing their country for the first time or hoping to get a good result? How does that impact feel?
It's amazing, you know, 70 years on, Eurovision still has such a huge impact around the world. And for any artist would agree, like it's anything that gives that sort of platform for musicians and their songs and their artistry, their staging. It's such a gift to musos, but also for the fans as well. So I feel very privileged that I was given that opportunity to belong to that and showcase what I have. And yeah, I'm so glad that it's continuing to do that for so many artists around the world 7 years on.
And just before I let you go, do you have a message for the Eurovision community?
Yes, I want to say to the Eurovision community that I am so grateful for the love and support you share with all the different artists, for me. And I just want to say, yeah, I love you. I love you so much.
I'd like to thank Dami Im for coming onto the show. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your experience at the 2016 contest. I know that for me personally, your music has meant a lot to me, being part of the Eurovision community, being part of the family, and being part of the 70-year legacy of Eurovision. There are many songs and many artists that I absolutely love, and you are definitely amongst that list. So thank you so much for being a part of the Eurovision community. Thank you for taking that risk, because I know that you essentially became a diplomat. You were the ambassador of Australia at Eurovision, and taking that risk has legitimately changed my life. You know, your song has been so inspirational, giving me that moment at the camp's talent show, and just being able to celebrate your music and your legacy. So just personally, thank you. And of course, just a thank you from the overall Eurovision community. You are an icon, and you are forever a part of the massive legacy of this international show.
Oh, thanks, Alex. That's so sweet. And yeah, likewise, it's been such a pleasure to be part of this interview. And you know, you've encouraged me with your story and the stories of potentially all the other people around the world. So thank you so much for chatting with me.
I cannot believe that I just got to interview Dami Im, the runner-up of the 2016 Eurovision Song Contest. I'm still trying to process that whole experience. She was absolutely incredible. To get that kind of perspective at the contest is so amazing, especially as someone who runs a Eurovision history podcast. When we watch the contest on TV, we only get to see what the camera shows us. And if we're lucky to see the show live, we get a little bit of a different perspective, but it's nothing compared to actually being on stage or in the green room. It is such an honor and a privilege to be able to share these stories, and to have the actual artists share their perspective directly is so invaluable. It brings a whole new dimension to the contest, and I am so grateful to Dami for agreeing to come onto the show and share her story. I'm also glad that I had the opportunity to share my own story with her directly. It's wild going from singing her song at a camp talent show to interviewing the artist directly. I never thought that I would be able to do that in a million years, and having that privilege is just so incredible. I am so thankful to have this show to share stories about Eurovision artists and places and people, and to celebrate what it is today. To celebrate both Dami's 10-year anniversary and the 70th anniversary of the contest as a whole is just incredible, and I am so grateful to have Dami on the show to celebrate both of those milestones. Before we close today's episode, it's time for Song of the Week. This is part of the show where I share Eurovision entry that I love, or maybe I can't stand it. Perhaps it's absolutely forgettable, or I'm obsessing over it. Let's find out which entry gets Song of the Week. This week's Song of the Week is the 1959 French entry, Oui, 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 translated as Yes, 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 sung by Jean-Philippe, composer Hubert Giraud, lyricist Pierre Cour, and it was conducted by Frank Pourcel. It placed third, getting 15 points. It got 4 points from Denmark and West Germany, 2 points from Belgium and Monaco, and 1 point from Austria, Italy, and Switzerland.
Va, mon bateau va, pour elle et moi. Oui, mais voilà, mon bateau est tout petit. Il dort dans une bouteille, et moi je rêve avec lui. Oui, 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 oui. Quand vient la nuit, nous partons découvrir mille merveilles dont je ne sais pas le nom. Non, 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 non.
This world is filled with beautiful destinations containing endless opportunities to form happy and intimate memories. Whether you're traveling solo, with a friend, or a loved one, there is so much to see, and Jean-Philippe is saying oui, 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 oui to going on vacation, although he's technically saying it 7 times in the song. Would you like to visit the skies of Capri or the palaces of Bengal? Perhaps soak up the sun in Hawaii, or simply sail along to wherever the waters take you. Jean-Philippe is your guide to happiness in this cheery tune. The sheer optimism in this song needs no translation, but I'm going to provide you one anyway. Lyrics translated from the Dig Lutherash website reveals the plan Jean-Philippe has for us. Quote, "Let your mast dance, let your sail flap, go, my ship, go, for her and me, drift over there, choose the most beautiful port of call, and I offer you a paradise." I've had the honor of traveling to Europe twice, and both times I had an unforgettable experience seeing beautiful sights and taking in local cultures. While my ideal vacation may not be as exotic as Bengal or Hawaii, I've been privileged to visit other parts of the world, and this song celebrates that sense of adventure. I know that many people don't have the money or the resources to become world travelers, but maybe the contest can bring a bit of that traveling spirit without breaking the bank. This week's Song of the Week celebrates world travel. Hop on board and set sail to your dream destination. Sound of Silence is not only the most successful Australian entry at the Eurovision Song Contest at the time of recording, it holds a special place in my heart. Her performance in 2016 is inspiring, powerful, and I am in awe of her talent. Dami is so iconic even 10 years later, and I want to thank her again for coming onto the show. Hearing her share her experience at the contest was just so amazing, and I am happy that she's part of the Eurovision family. Of course, Dami continues to perform and release new music, and she was recently nominated for 2 Queensland Music Awards, including the Music for Screen Award for My Favorite Scar and the Jazz Award for her song Bubble. Speaking of Bubble, that song is actually part of her new upcoming EP, Stormy Weather. Despite the advice of never judging a book by its cover, I can't help but look at the cover and get really excited. Dami is already beautiful, and this cover is something else. She is gorgeous. I love the brown tones, and her hair is majestic. I had to listen to the 2 pre-release singles, Bubble and Side of You, and they are smooth and delicious. Her voice is still amazing 10 years later. Her new EP will be released on June 12th. However, if you can't wait that long, there are the aforementioned singles already released, and there will be a 3rd single being released on May 22nd. Or, if you prefer to hear her vocal talents live, Dami is going on tour in June and July of this year. She'll be performing in Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, and Perth. However, if you live on the other side of the world, don't worry, I have good news. She'll be performing in Amsterdam on November 13th at the Het Grot Song Festival Fest. And of course, please check out the 10-year anniversary edition of Sound of Silence featuring Electric Fields. All of the links and info for the song, the EP, and the tour will be in the show notes linked in the description, or check out Dami's Instagram page. Thank you for joining me on this week's episode of ESC 101. If you'd like to support the show, be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. You can find our social media pages on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, and YouTube. All of our handles are at ESC 101 Podcast. Leave your comments down below or send us an email to esc101podcast@gmail.com. Show notes for this episode are available on our website, esc101podcast.wordpress.com. We post episodes every Friday, so be sure to stay tuned for the next one. Take care.